What's up, everybody? Welcome to System Crafters Live. I'm David Wilson, and we're back again with another Friday stream where we get together as a community and talk about whatever topic I've come up with for the week. So first of all, I have no idea why the screen has a very strange reddish tint to it. I don't know if you can see that. I see it on my end, so I don't know what's going on with that, but I'll try to get it fixed by the next stream. Who knows, man? Every time I change little aspects of the streaming setup, of the recording setup, weird things happen. So what can I say? It's just the circumstances around using free and open source software to do broadcasting. So that's what we have to deal with. Ashra says, "Is Redshift active?" I killed Redshift more than once, and on my actual screen, I don't see any color temperature change. But for some reason, on the capture device, it's showing up as color temperature change. So it's very weird. Definitely not Redshift, though. It's been turned off for a while now. All right, let me say hello to the folks who have joined so far. Fikri, Gunn, Inperton, Dave, RRA, Hyder, John Stone, Tommy, Andrew, Ashraz, Joseph, John, Colin, Mark, Valentino, Menacing Mecca. Nice to see you. And Dark, hello to all of you. Thanks so much for joining today. Menacing Mecca is a game developer that does some pretty cool visual stuff. If you are on Mastodon, you should search for Menacing Mecca. All right. So today, I thought it would be kind of cool to talk about what I have in store for next year. This year has been a little bit... Let me turn blink mode off here. There we go. This year's been a little bit of a anomaly because I moved to a different country and there was this a never-ending series of difficulties as a result of that. So I only really made about 5 videos. I kept streaming pretty consistently. I mean, there was a few weeks here and there where I wasn't streaming, but I managed to keep the channel going with streams. But really, I felt like I didn't put enough videos out and enough sort of tutorial content. A lot of the live streams were just me figuring things out on the fly. And that's not good enough for, teaching people how to do things in Emacs and Guix. So I got a lot of plans for what I want to do in 2023, and we're going to talk about that today. Also, hello to Matthias, to Erwan, to Eric Colson, Anton, the Foss Enjoyer, and Sammerjack over in Twitch chat. All right, let's go through the updates. First of all, the previous System Crafter store was a Shopify store, and I had it running for months and months, and is costing too much money to be running without really getting any sales. So I shut that thing down this week. I actually managed to replace it with a different type of store in, I don't know, about 30 minutes today. So I'm just going to try it for a while, see how it goes. The same address still applies, store.systemcrafters.net. Same kind of stuff is still there. It's basically just merchandise with the logo on it. Not great. I'm going to try to improve upon that in the coming year, but if you want to check that out and give me some feedback on what you see there, please do. Yeah, it's just sort of like a on the fly type thing I'm doing with that because I didn't want to keep paying Shopify for nothing, basically. So I just want to let you know that I made that change. Man, this screen tint is really starting to annoy me. I can see myself, I look fine, but the screen does not. So really interesting. Also, just want to repeat what I've been saying the last few weeks because I think it bears repeating. Please join us all on the Fediverse. If you haven't tried Mastodon or any of the other sort of Fediverse implementations, Mastodon's probably the primary one. Definitely swing by emacs.ch or fossadon.org. Both are really good instances to create an account on. There's many people from the Emacs community on Mastodon now. A lot of people talking about Emacs and Guix every day. So if you want to engage with more people who are talking about these topics that we talk about on this channel, please create an account on one of these 2 servers or any other server that you're interested in. The nice thing about the Fediverse or ActivityPub implementations, etc., is that you can join on any server, and so long as the server you picked hasn't been banned in other places, you should be able to follow people from different servers. They can follow you, and you can communicate with all the people. So definitely a good thing to do. I'm on Fossadon. You can find me at fossadon.org/DavidWill. I created this account in 2019 or 2020 before emacs.ch came along, so that's the reason why I'm there, not emacs.ch. But definitely give me a follow there, and it's been fun. I don't know. It's a lot of good vibes going on in Mastodon right now. I like it a lot. And lastly, one cool way that you can support the channel is to buy a copy of Mastering Emacs with the link below, masteringemacs.org/rs/systemcrafters. Mastering Emacs is a very in-depth book about Emacs that covers a wide variety of features that many of which we haven't really got a chance to cover on this channel. So if you want to deepen your understanding of Emacs, I definitely recommend picking up a copy of that book. Using that affiliate link basically sends a portion of the proceeds of the purchase of the book to support the channel, which is great. Very nice thing that Mickey did to set that up. Another nice thing is that Mickey updates this book for every major Emacs release, so that if there's any new features or anything that needs to be changed based on maybe changes in Emacs, then the book will be up to date. So I imagine that as soon as Emacs 29 comes out, probably in the next couple months, however long it takes, Mickey will probably have another update out, and you'll get to see the benefits of that. So definitely give that book a look if you are interested in learning more about Emacs. Cable Car Digital asks, new color theme? No, just streaming issues. I don't know what it is. We'll just pretend like it didn't happen. Okay, so today, since this is the last stream of 2022, I thought it might be fun to talk about what my plans are for the channel and for the community next year. Like I mentioned at the top of the stream, I'm a little disappointed with the lack of videos this year. Only posted 5 or so videos, and I felt like I should have done a lot more. I just didn't really have the time and got distracted with other things here and there. But in 2023, I'm going to change that and get really heavy back into video production on the channel, and also some other things that I think will be interesting. So I would like to discuss all of that with you all today, get your feedback on it, and also see if maybe you'd be interested in contributing to some of the aspects of what we plan to do in 2023. So at any time, please feel free to give comments in the chat, and at the end, there'll be some more time, hopefully, so that we can all sort of discuss different aspects of all this stuff, and you can let me know what you think. First of all, as of this moment, I have a list of about 36 different videos about Emacs, Guix, Guile Scheme, etc. that I can make, or that I want to make next year. Basically, I just sat down and thought about all the things that I didn't talk about this year that I want to make videos on, and just compiled a big list. More things are being added every day. I keep getting suggestions from people here and there. So there's a lot of possible content that we can talk about in the next year, a lot of topics, a lot of things that I can share with you, since I've still been using Emacs and Guix and sort of trying different things, a lot of sort of strategies and workflows that I can share with you based on my own experience. And I'm really excited about that because I've been missing making videos, and I kind of like this whole cycle of, thinking really hard about something to try to make it, the best distillation of the information possible, and then putting it out as a video and just seeing what people think. So I'm really excited to get back into that. So we'll be doing tutorials on packages like Embark, Consult, Avi, Tab Spaces, and a lot more of the community packages that are around. There seem to be new packages all the time being produced by the Emacs community. So I'm going to cover a lot of those, because I think that what you get when you start following the videos on this channel is you can follow the Emacs from Scratch series and sort of get a configuration set up. But then from that point, maybe you need to have some ideas for other options for things that you want to use in your Emacs configuration, or maybe you want to go find like what the newer strategy is for a particular type of workflow or package. And I really want to cover these specific packages plus a few others I have in mind, because I think that they've all sort of improved the way that I use Emacs, but I haven't had a really good chance to think really hard about how I want to give that information in a really solid way, and not on a stream where I'm just sort of figuring it out real time. So looking forward to talking about those things for sure. Also want to do new tutorials on built-in Emacs features like VC mode, project.el, tab bar mode, the compile command and sort of the functionality that goes along with that, which I use every day basically, but I just haven't really talked about in the channel yet. ERT, which is an Emacs Lisp testing framework, which if you're writing your own Emacs Lisp packages, it's really good to know about ERT, because writing tests is a great way to verify that the code is doing what you expect it to. And also it can lead to higher quality code, because to make code testable, you have to write it in a way that actually improves the quality of the code. So very useful thing to learn about. EGLOT and TreeSitter, which are going to be two major features coming into Emacs 29. I have not made a video about eglot yet, and we haven't really talked about tree sitter at all. I tried to use it in the stream a couple weeks ago and it didn't work, but I'm gonna make a video where it actually does work, and I'll tell you why that you want to use it. So if people have other ideas for built-in features that I haven't covered on the channel yet, please definitely let me know. Send me an email, leave a comment in the video, chat, whatever, and I will add those to the list. But I think there's a lot of really good stuff built into Emacs, especially in the last couple of releases. You know, from 27 to now, a lot of cool new stuff that has come online we really need to talk about. I'm also going to make multiple videos on Guix Home. We've discussed it on streams, but I've never made a tutorial video about it or even an introductory video about it. So I'm going to change that. I've got things in progress already for that. We're going to go into just like sort of the basics, how to get started with Guix Home. We're going to talk about how to write your own home services, which are a big component of how you configure your system or set up various pieces of software that you use in your configuration. And also how to generally migrate your existing dot files over to it. That's sort of the biggest leap that you have to make, is like you've got a bunch of different files for your different programs, and you need to figure out how to set those up using Guix Home. I've spent enough time now with it that I think I have a pretty good strategy for how to deal with that, especially if you're trying to share the same configuration across multiple machines, and maybe you need to change certain values in those configuration files. We'll cover that in a video, and I think it should be pretty helpful for people who haven't tried Guix Home yet. More videos on how to write packages, services, and system configurations with Guix. After the Guix installation video, the Guix system installation video, I kind of dropped off that series, and I shouldn't have done that because I think there's a lot of things that you kind of need to know whenever you set up a system with Guix. So I'm going to go and try to fill in the blanks on that. So if you've had trouble configuring your system after you have followed the tutorial videos that I have about Guix, please let me know sort of what problems you ran into so I can maybe cover those in future videos, because it's been a while since I've done an installation of Guix when I didn't already have a complete configuration written. So I don't remember a lot of the problems, so you'll have to help me on that. Let's see. Also, general coverage of writing code with Guile Scheme using Geyser as the IDE. So I've been saying for a while that I wanted to do a tutorial series on Guile Scheme, and I think this is now the time to do it. I see a lot more interest in Scheme on Mastodon than I've seen in other places before, which is actually really surprising to me. Scheme has been one of the more obscure members of the Lisp language family for a while, but it seems that I think with the sort of increase in awareness of Guix, more people are becoming aware of Guile Scheme. And I think Guile is a great place to start if you are trying to learn Scheme, because it is a very practical implementation, has a lot of stuff built in that you might want to use. And I think there's a lot of ways we could figure out how to use it for both system configuration tasks using Guix, or even scripting, automation tasks, or application development, various things like that. So for building your own tools or scripting your system, I think that we can get into some really cool stuff with Guile Scheme, and then maybe continue into the next year after that, talking about more deep topics in the matter. So I'm excited to talk more about that, because Scheme is my favorite member of the Lisp language family, and I really like to spend more time diving into that and also sharing my enthusiasm with you all. So aside from all those topics that I just mentioned, there's a ton of tools outside of Emacs and Guix that we can cover just as a way to sort of broaden our perspective or get good ideas on things that we can add to our Emacs and Guix configurations. So for instance, like different window managers, I'd been using Erbsluft window manager for, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months. I don't remember how long. But there's other window managers I'd like to try. I'm back in EXWM right now. You might have noticed, maybe you didn't notice. But I'm still going to try other window managers, and I want to make videos on those occasionally, just sort of as a way to compare and contrast, but also maybe come up with interesting ways to use them in combination with Emacs and Guix. Also shells, or just any other tool, really, like just bits and pieces here and there. This is a channel about crafting your own system configuration, so it's better to understand the options you have and how you might put them together. So making videos where I explain a tool, but then also show you how you could connect it to other pieces that we've already talked about might be pretty interesting, I think. Gunn says, side-by-side eLisp and Scheme examples. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. We should do that at some point, because if you've written a decent amount of Emacs Lisp, you might want to figure out how to translate that to Guile scheme so you can sort of bootstrap your knowledge of that language a bit more quickly. The good news is that now that lexical scoping is turned on by default in Emacs and it's become more prevalent, it's easier to sort of get started with Guile scheme. The thing you really need to learn is just the differences in which functions that you have available to you for things like, resolving file paths or, I don't know, concatenating strings, things like that. It's like just sort of mapping one set of library functions over to another. There are some differences between Scheme and Emacs Lisp for sure, but I think that it's a lot more similar than what you might expect. Let's see. So my goal with the new video production this year is to have the first video out somewhere in the first week of January and then post a new one every 1 to 2 weeks after that. I want to be consistent like I used to be. I used to put a video or two out every week in the first year that I was doing System Crafters, and that was a lot of fun. I think people were really into it. Even if you didn't get to see all the videos that I was putting out, there was such a raft of new content coming in that people always had something new to go check out. So I want to get back into that state pretty soon. So somewhere in the second week of January, we'll definitely have the first video out for the year. I might make it a video about why you might want to learn Guile scheme. Haven't really decided exactly yet, but the last 2 years I've done a why you should do X in whatever the current year is. So I might do the same thing again this year. So we'll see. Hello to Usmane and Data Monoid and Moom. Sorry. Dave says Nixed. Yeah, I still I haven't fully bought into Nixed yet. That's not a knock on Nix. It's just like every time I try to use it, it just doesn't click for me. And also Common Lisp tutorial. I don't spend a lot of time with Common Lisp these days. If you want to see some content on Common Lisp, I would definitely recommend Gavin Freeborn's YouTube channel. You've seen Gavin around probably here in the chat before, and some of you have probably seen his videos as well. He's been covering Common Lisp pretty well, so I think that if you want to see some of that, definitely there. I might do some comparison videos between Common Lisp and Scheme at some point in the future, but since I don't personally use Common Lisp very much, it's harder for me to sit down and make content for it. However, if enough people are asking and people want to see sort of my take on it and maybe some tutorials, I'd be happy to do it. It's just a matter of prioritization, I guess. Let's see. Gunn says, aside from the live streams, yeah, these are all things I would do in a better quality way than when we've discussed these topics on live streams, for sure. Okay. So now let's talk about what we want to do on the Friday streams going forward. One thing I've been thinking about for a while, which I haven't acted on too much yet, is having guests on the Friday streams to interview them about their background and maybe their projects they've worked on, or just to discuss a particular topic. I think it would be really valuable to learn more about how they all got into hacking or system configuration or contributing to projects and why they did it. Especially if they are contributing to things like Emacs or Guix, because it might be sort of inspiring to see someone's background, where they came from, maybe how they learned programming, or how they found out about Emacs or Guix, and then sort of just their journey up until the present day. I've got a list of possible guests that I'd like to interview, with a few already in early planning, just some sort of discussions about the fact that we would like to speak, but not necessarily a time frame in mind. But I've got a lot of people that you've heard of that I would like to speak to, and probably will think of quite a lot more if I sit down and do it. But if you've got suggestions for people also you would like to see me interview on the Friday streams or on some stream, because some people may not be able to do Friday, definitely give me some suggestions in the chat or on Mastodon, email, comments, etc., and I'll definitely add them to the list. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be a different format. We'll be able to just sort of talk about ideas and have fun chatting. And of course, the people in the chat will be able to ask questions too. Gunn says, hire Prat as a full-time Emacs advisor. Well, I don't know. I mean, Prat, I think he's doing pretty well at the moment. I hope he's doing well, at least. I think he got some work. And also, I believe he's been getting, that's the doorbell, more sponsors on GitHub. Let's actually check this out. Well, github.com/sponsors/Protesilaus. I think that's what it is, right? So anyway, if you want to sponsor Protesilaus like I do, you can go to his GitHub sponsors page and join up there. I think that he's been getting a pretty decent flow of new folks in there. So definitely sponsor Prot if you're interested in supporting what he's doing. That was interesting. Whoop. So my hope is that we'll have our first interview stream in January or February, depending on who might be available then. I'm going to start reaching out to people in the next few days. Geo says to interview Richard Stallman. I don't know that Richard Stallman would be interested. I thought about it, but since I'm primarily streaming on proprietary platforms, I don't think that he'd be very happy about that. T says Scheme outside of Guix. Yes, we will definitely be talking about Scheme outside of Guix. Guile Scheme, in fact. Good point. Data Monoid says Rouget is an interesting person to interview. Yes, I should add Nicholas to the list there. Let me see if I can pull up my... All right, so... All right, 1 second, sorry. Cool. That was a great suggestion. And Bram Moulinar. That would be interesting. I don't know if Bram Moulinar would be interested to talk to me. Ashra says a zero cool GPG SSH key. Yes, because I had to set up my SSH key on Codeberg. Yes, it's public fingerprint, so. I know, I was just being a little bit sketchy because it's kind of scary to expose yourself. That's a blanket statement, obviously. Yeah, Bram Moulinar would be pretty interesting to interview. He's the creator of Vim. Maybe one day. Let's see what else I got here. So, back on the topic of Richard Stallman. So maybe after I get a PeerTube instance set up or some other way to stream on a non-proprietary platform, maybe Richard Stallman would be interested to talk to me. We'll see. Yeah, Henrik Listener from Doom Emacs. That would be a good idea. He's been interviewed on the Zaist programming channel, I think. There was a good stream where Zaist interviewed him. But let me add him to the list anyway, because it would be interesting to talk to him. My key bindings no longer work. Sorry, folks. All right. Here we are. Oh boy. We have someone in Twitch chat who's offering me promotion of my channel. Of course. Oh, Ambravar. Yeah, I would love to talk to Ambravar, but Ambravar kind of like ghosted the internet. He's still contributing to Nix, but he sort of like took his website down, all of his blog posts, and keeps a low profile. So I'm not so sure. Actually, I did talk to him about being interviewed. God, it was probably a year ago or more, and I never followed back up with him. I don't know what his state is these days, but I actually do need to ask him. So maybe I will do that also. I should probably just be taking notes in the show notes instead of doing what I'm doing right now. Okay. Hello to Elijah. Okay. Next, community spotlight. So we're going to talk about community efforts in a minute, but before we get to that, I did want to discuss my desire to bring people from the System Crafters community or just the general Emacs and Geeks community on the streams to discuss projects that they've built or the configurations or the status of larger projects that are associated with our community. Like let's say Crafted Emacs. For example, I could bring Jeff Bowman on to talk about the progress on Crafted Emacs and some ideas we'd like to get feedback on. So I've been wanting to do this for a while, but I haven't spent the time to actually organize it. But I think it'd be really cool that if someone released a new package, we might be able to have them come onto the live stream and just sort of talk about what their motivations were behind it, explain a little bit about how they wrote it, and just generally promote the project, because there's all kinds of new packages being released, all the time in the Emacs land, and there's many opportunities to talk to people about the stuff they've been working on. So I think it'd be cool. I would enjoy it quite a lot, I think. Gunn says, turning System Crafters into a talk format like Foss Weekly with Randall Schwartz. Well, I would be interested to find out what that show is like because I haven't actually listened to it. Ashra says you might need a proper moderator or person for noting down a question during those interviews. Thank you for volunteering yourself then, Ashraz. I appreciate that. No, I'm kidding. Yes, I would like to have something like that just so that people can kind of keep questions flowing through so I don't have to keep watching the chat because better to focus my attention on the person that we're interviewing. So if people have ideas or maybe they want to propose that we talk about, if you want to propose to talk about your own project, definitely feel free to send me an email and I'll see if we can figure out a way to slot that in. This is not necessarily limited to people who regularly join System Crafter streams, but I would prioritize people who are active sort of members of the community, either on IRC or Discord or here in the live chats. So let me know if you're interested in that sort of thing. Data Monoid says, don't forget Tikosaur. So Tikosaur joined us once before whenever I was talking about his configuration in .file detective, but I would like to talk to Tikosaur or Techosaur again in a more legitimate format because he was only there in the chat the last time. So we didn't get to speak, but yes, I should add Tech to the list. Oh, come on. Okay, got that one. Okay, so speaking of .file detective, so I started a series of streams in 2021 called .file detective, where we take a look at someone's .files to see if there's any interesting tricks that we can learn from scanning through their .files. And I would like to get that series started up again and do a better job than we did the last time. I mean, last time we sort of just started looking through things, not really in a prepared way. And also the people whose configuration we were looking at, they were usually in the chat, but not really on voice or video or anything. So it would be another avenue for interviewing people about decisions they made, other things they've tried, you know, sort of their general philosophy about how they organize their configuration. So it could be sort of like an interview slash sort of looking into their configuration, and maybe they can actually demonstrate their configuration. That was the one thing that I wasn't able to do the last time, is demonstrate their config, because I had to figure out how to set it up. I can't do that because they may have a bunch of programs that I don't use, or, you know, they're on a different distribution of Linux, or maybe they're even using Windows, who knows? So it'd be better if the person whose configuration we're looking at could actually show it themselves. Maybe they can drive the discussion and show different things they think are interesting. We'll see. I think it could be another cool way to do things. Ashraz says, okay, boss, got your interview on Boxing Day. Gavin's volunteering. Starting time is 1400 UTC. Yes. Probably should interview Gavin too. All right, so I also want to have a regular stream where we dig into the code of various different Emacs packages, Guix services, Guix package, etc., to see what we can learn from them. This is really a good way to learn a lot of obscure functions like library functions or coding patterns in Emacs Lisp or Guile scheme, etc. I feel like it is something that I've been wanting to do, but we never really got around to it. But it's something I would like to prepare, because I don't want to just come in like, oh, what's this function do? You know, I'd like to look at the code myself first and try to find out, you know, what's interesting about it, so we don't waste time just sort of stumbling around in the code base. I think we may have done that once before and it didn't go so well. So a lot of this is about me wanting to be more prepared and to actually, you know, convey information effectively on streams. For example, packages like Magit. What else? What other packages could we think of that would be interesting to look at? Evil mode. That could be interesting just from all the key binding setup stuff there. What else? I don't know. We'll think of a lot of more things to do, but you know, some of the more complicated or elaborate Emacs packages would be really interesting to look at. I would like to look at, you know, ERC or RC-IRC, because those do a lot of network access, and you know, you're basically implementing a protocol inside of Emacs. So it'd be interesting to look at that. Maybe even things like Mastodon.el, since it's kind of timely. Yes, Sasha Chua. I've got Sasha on the list for sure. I would love to talk to Sasha. Our T says Minad Temple. Yes, I want to talk about the Temple package at some point for sure. Colin says maybe Vertigo or some completion more generally since it's so central. Yeah, that's a good idea actually. So Vertigo or other completion guys. Maybe I'll look at tab spaces also. Gun says, didn't you cover Magic already? Like looking in the code, I feel like I might have looked at that one, but I don't know how far we got into it, if we did. And Ashra says, I concur, but I believe that also needs some kind of action log similar to the streams in early 2021, so that way the commands are not arcane. Yeah. Data Monoid says, you might want to interview some Guix folks. Yes, I have 2 or 3 in mind already, which I would like to, people who I would like to speak to. Okay, so next, written content. This is another thing I've been talking about and thinking about for a while. I'd like to try my hand at writing longer form structured content like books about the topics that we discuss on this channel. You can think of them as ... Apparently I lost my train of thought. Mickey Peterson was suggested in the chat. Definitely going to talk to Mickey. I've actually already discussed it with him. I just haven't figured out a time yet. Lucas says, is this Stump WM or EXWM? This is EXWM. Ashra says, speaking of Sasha, maybe implement some kind of shared editor for that list similar to Emacs Conf's Etherpad for the live streams next year. Messages within chat are somewhat bad for code. Yeah, that's actually a good point. We need another way to transmit information into the stream, so maybe that's a good way. EC Gade says, is there a print version of Mastering Emacs? I don't think so. Gun says, excelling Emacs, a sequel to Mastering Emacs. I'm not going to mess around in Mickey's space there. I will let him continue to be the book guy for the sort of mainline Emacs stuff, I guess. More in-depth and complete tutorials on a particular topic. So my goal for these would be to produce these in a way where they can be read freely online with like a pay what you want model for the PDF and e-reader copies, but it would be something where it's like pay what you want, but it's free. So you can just download the EPUB or PDF or maybe even like a .info file. In the past, I was looking into how to make the books into .info files that you can just load up in the Emacs and read inside the editor, which would be pretty cool. But, you know, I think that to fit with the ethos of this community and the other related communities, it's better for me to, anything that I make should be freely accessible to everyone because it's meant to be a learning resource. I'm not trying to like hoard information here and put everything behind a paywall. I don't want to do that. I think it's kind of lame. So I would like to spend time writing stuff like this so that there is also a very like detailed and easy to reference source of information out there so that you can read up on things. Like maybe I would even talk about, you know, setting up a desktop environment with EXWM. I got some other topics here that maybe I'll cover, but let me add that to the list. So okay. So those things that I could cover would be things like optimal task and project management workflow using org mode, maybe org roam, denote, etc. I've got a lot of thoughts on that now. Especially since I've gotten back into using the sort of getting things done methodology. I've got some thoughts on how you could do that pretty effectively inside of org mode. Also a complete tutorial for configuring a system and your dot files using Guix. Obviously there's the Guix manual and the Guix cookbook, but there isn't like a sort of end-to-end step-by-step tutorial in longer form that tells you all the things you need to know about how to configure your system and your dot files with GNU Guix. So I would like to do something for that. I don't know like which order I would do that in. I don't know which book I would start first if I did start one. I actually was working on an org roam book in the past, but I start too many projects. I get a little bit, you know, my focus gets diffused across many different areas. I'm trying to rein that in now and, you know, have a more consistent workflow. So we'll see which one I start on first. If people have specific preferences about which of these topics or maybe other that you would like to see first, definitely let me know, because I want all the feedback I can get on this stuff. I'm also planning to just do this as like a, what they call it, like early access, where while I'm writing it, I'll just be getting feedback from people as I go, because there's no point in doing this all in secret. It might as well be, you know, getting input from people. And it's probably something I'll cover on streams. I'll be giving updates on whatever stuff I'm working on book-wise, so that people have a chance to give feedback as it goes. Billy Grant says, do you live in Greece? Yes, I live in Athens. Edward says, I like the Lisp programming videos you do. Thank you. Oh, hello to Thomas Von Apen. And Merry Xmas to you as well. Let's see. Lucas says, me personally, I really enjoy the REPL connection environments for both EXWM and Guix. I still kind of think of both of them without using the REPL, and sometimes it seems like it defeats the purpose. Well, I am probably the worst person when it comes to using the Guix REPL. Did I mention that? Yeah, I'm going to make a video about using the Guix REPL, because I still need to like get into a habit of using it reliably. There's only like very small number of circumstances where I actually use it and it provides value to me, but I feel like there's a lot more you can do with it that I'm just not even scratching the surface on. So as a way to make myself get more comfortable using it, I'm definitely going to start making some videos on it, or at least one video. That way we can sort of gather all of the knowledge about that. I might have to consult some people too to see, you know, what the tips and tricks are. Okay, so my wife was calling me on Telegram. I don't know why telega.el does that horrible sound. Sorry about that. So what else did I say? Also, possibly an updated Emacs from scratch in book form. I actually kind of want to do Emacs from scratch again, because so many of the packages that I use and I sort of recommended on sorry, one second. Okay, sorry about that. With the advent of things like, you know, Vertigo, Consult, Embark, you know, Marginalia, Orderless, all those other packages that sort of fit together, I feel like it might be interesting to start over a little bit with Emacs from scratch. I've learned so much since I did the first series that doing it again might be interesting. Now, I did start Emacs from scratch 2.0, where I was basically going to go like from in the box stuff. I will get back to that as well, but you know, for the people who follow the original Emacs from scratch series, I think the reason why that series still holds up and still gets so many views and people still like find Emacs or configure the Emacs through it is because I sort of just took a direct path of, you know, just going step by step through a lot of different things that you would want to set up. And I've got a lot of different recommendations on those things now. So I feel like it's, it might be time to slowly start doing that again. And I might do that on streams just to get, you know, some of the same kind of live feedback that I was getting the last time. But we'll have to take a look at that at some point soon. But I am saying that as a way to say that I would probably do that in a book form as well at some point. Ashra says, darling, I hope you're taking the trash out and not working on your stream. Don't worry, honey. My editor has a garbage collector. That's pretty good. No, we've got people here at the house doing work, and she needed to ask me for credit card details. So nice. Setting up EXWM as a desktop environment. We had that video series. What was that? Is that at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, I think? Emacs desktop environment. That information is still basically the same because things haven't changed too much in EXWM land, but maybe there's other ways that we could set that up now. Like for instance, not using polybar and using the tab bar mode instead as the panel. You know, that simplifies things and it keeps it more in the scope of just using Emacs itself. So we might do that too. And even go further with an all Emacs configuration. I believe there is even a notification system for Emacs so that you don't have to use an external program like Dunst to get dbus notifications. So I think there's things we could do there as well. It'd be pretty cool to write a book about that. I would like to do one of these as a simpler topic at first, just to sort of get used to the whole process of putting together detailed information and the whole publishing process. When I say publishing, I mean like taking an org file or a series of org files and turning them into some kind of output format like PDF, EPUB, info, etc. So there's a lot of work that goes into that, but we'll get to it. Judy Dev says, speaking of EXWM, I might switch to EXWM and see if I get it running on my test laptop. Well, it should work. When I switched back to EXWM recently, I had various weird issues, but I think it was mainly because I have my own long-standing EXWM configuration, and I have been tweaking things here and there, especially after I switched to Erbsluft for a while. And when I switched back, I think I had broken some things. And whenever you break your EXWM config, what happens is it just doesn't boot all the way, and you can't do much because you have like a real Emacs window, and then you have some kind of fake workspace Emacs frame on top of that, and you can't switch workspaces. I don't know, weird stuff happens whenever EXWM doesn't get set up correctly, and it's never that clear as to why. So yeah, good luck. It's a Pinebook Pro, but yeah, it should be fine. Maybe Stump WM. Yeah, Stump is good. I don't know. I've tried it a few times now. I tried it on streams and was using it for a little while, but I don't know. It just didn't have that right feeling to me. EXWM is nice. Erbsloof was nice, but the thing that drove me crazy was the fact that I couldn't pin specific workspaces to individual screens because that's such a critical part of my workflow. Eve says the only problem with Stump is the font rendering. Well, if you have the right extensions, you can use TTF font rendering and have better fonts. So that's the one thing I did set up with my Stump configuration in Guix, and it actually was better. Gunn says, and some German lessons for crafters in order to get the pronunciation right. Dude, I'm trying my best here. I'm trying. Every time I say Erbsluft, I'm trying to say it correctly. I know I'm probably not saying it correctly, but please respect the effort, I guess. I know you're joking. I'm joking too. The Stump run on Wayland? No. But there is a, what you call it? A fork or something, a version of Stump that might work on Wayland. I can't remember the name. Probably somebody can say it in the chat. But that is a possibility in the future. The fellow Germans can make you an audio package to practice with. Yeah, I'm sure I could find a pronunciation of it, an audio on the internet, but anyway. Fade says, there's a common Lisp Wayland compositor, but the work hasn't been done. Yeah, there's also one for Emacs coming up too, which I would like to take a look at some point next year and see whether it's going to be, you know, the way forward for Emacs window management. All right. So like I said, it's been hard to find time to spend on writing, but I'm determined to get something started this year because I really want to sort of expand the types of tutorial content that I produce because I think that, you know, if people are getting value from the way that I present things, then having it in another form that's not just video would also be pretty useful. I mean, there's always the show notes, but the show notes is sort of like a pairing to the video, and they might be useful standalone, but oftentimes they're not. So it's better to have like a real book that's made for the topic to be a standalone reference. I can't read the, what do you call that? the sort of pronunciation language, the characters and whatnot. I'm not a linguist. My wife is a linguist, or, you know, she studied computational linguistics, so she probably knows how to read that, but I don't. IPA, yeah. I like to drink those. I don't like to read them. Anyway. International Phonetic Alphabet. Yes, that's it. Thank you. ADE says, if you're going to do a new Emacs from scratch series, I think it would be best to introduce people to Emacs self-documenting nature, also how to use man pages, code documentation, stuff like that. Yeah, I did that in, was it Basics of Emacs Configuration, or maybe the Absolute Beginner's Guide to Emacs. So I covered a lot of that stuff. Ashra says, found the first topic where I certainly don't concur. Can't drink IPA. Yeah, it's not for everybody. It's a little bit too bitter. Don't ask me why. I kind of like, I got tricked into liking IPA because I kept hearing from people that IPA is bitter. And then I was like ordering an IPA at a restaurant. I didn't realize it was. I just was ordering it by the brand name. And then one day I had an actual IPA and I'm like, it's really similar to this other thing I was drinking. And yeah, it turns out that I liked IPAs and didn't realize it. Okay, so community efforts. This is something that I want to spend more time on this year. I've been thinking about it a lot and never really sort of gathered the necessary pieces to make it happen. So one of the sort of areas where we've already started something, but I haven't personally been super day-to-day invested in it is Crafted Emacs. So for those of you who haven't heard about Crafted Emacs, it's basically a base Emacs configuration that you can use as a quick starting point. If you haven't configured Emacs before, like maybe if you are just getting started with Emacs and you want something just to get started and not really have to do a whole lot of tweaking, but also as a basis for gradually building your own custom configuration. Sort of from the beginning, the idea is that I kind of want you to build your own Emacs configuration because I think it's very rewarding to do it, but it's also very daunting if you've never configured Emacs from scratch yourself. You could follow the Emacs from scratch series. That's one way to do it, but I also saw that a lot of people were using the Emacs from scratch configuration repo as a configuration, which I did not intend. It was sort of just like an example of where we had gotten to in the series of actually setting the configuration up. So Crafted Emacs is sort of an answer to that, where it's sort of a set of best practice configuration modules for various different things that you might want to use in Emacs. And you can just sort of take them in piecemeal, whatever you want to use, and then also have your own configuration for other parts of Emacs. So Jeff Bowman, who I don't think is here today, he's been doing a really fantastic job shepherding this project this year after I, quote unquote, launched it, I guess, at the beginning of the year. But this upcoming year, I'm planning to give Jeff a hand and help build some more interesting contributions and maybe try to keep pushing the project in a direction that I have in mind. Also, I can't go without saying that there have been a number of contributions to the project from community members just like you, and I really appreciate all the people who have contributed things to it. And I would really love to help onboard new contributors to the project if you're interested in writing Emacs Lisp and maybe you see that there's some gaps in the configuration. I don't want to go like overboard and configure every possible package, but it needs to be a really solid configuration for just general Emacs use, and also maybe special configurations for certain languages people might want to work with. There's already some of that stuff there, but there's a lot more that could be written, I think. I've also got some ideas for how I'd like to improve it in the very near future. And if we have time, after I've talked about all the rest of the stuff that I'm going to talk about, we may discuss that. But if you haven't seen that project yet, definitely check out github.com/systemcrafters/crafted-emacs. I think that will get a lot more activity next year just because it fits into some other things that I want to do. Hey, Mjolnir, happy holidays to you as well. Ashra says, system craft beer. It's not about crafting your PC system. It's about crafting your life system. Yes, it's about dulling your senses. Not something that I am recommending, honestly. Let's see. Data Monoid says, today I learned about Corfu. It looks like NVim CMP. Well, Corfu is pretty nice. I use it. I do not use company mode anymore. Corfu is pretty sweet. And Ashras is making Life of Brian references. I haven't watched Life of Brian in probably 20 years. And also playing too much Dwarf Fortress. Man, I need to check out the new Dwarf Fortress. That's a little bit of a tangent, but Actually, I should not check out the new Dwarf Fortress because I might not be able to focus on anything afterwards. So probably better just stay away from that and focus on System Crafter stuff. All right, the next project that I want to get into. People have been asking me for a while now about making my own Guix distribution. At first, I wasn't so sure because I wasn't sure exactly how I would provide extra value on top of Guix aside from just producing, images people could boot into for installing Guix or like live CDs. And I actually do have those. If you go to the System Crafters organization on GitHub, you'll see a couple repos for the Guix installation image, including the full Linux kernel, and also a live CD that has the full Linux kernel, so you can boot it up and try it out. But the more I thought about it, the more I started to realize it's actually a good idea, but it has to be done in a way that justifies it being a standalone project from Guix itself. So I would always recommend people to use Guix, but for people who want a more quote-unquote crafted experience, I guess an experience where you install it and out of the box you have a nice setup with Emacs and everything else, I think it'd be pretty cool. So here's some ideas for what I would like to accomplish for a project like this. First of all, I would default to an Emacs-driven desktop environment with EXWM, much like what you're looking at right now. It is possible to install EXWM as the desktop environment whenever you run the Guix installer. I don't think that it's set up any more than just like, pulling in a blank Emacs configuration with just EXWM started up. And the way they hook it into the configuration, I'm not so sure if I like it because it does it at the system level and not at the user level. So I think that would be one of the main things to sort of differentiate this configuration as opposed to sort of the out-of-the-box installation behavior. But also, we would need to do things like, provide useful modules to help writing a Guix config. So there are certain things that you need to do from time to time whenever you're writing a Guix config that are sort of boilerplate, or maybe you don't even know that you'll have to do them until you start dealing with things like Guix Home, etc. So I think that there's code that I could include into this repository for Crafted Guix that could be used as utility modules where you don't actually have to use Crafted Guix to pull that code in. You can actually just pull in the Crafted Guix channel or repository and then load up that module, because any channel in Guix just gets turned into something else on the Guile load path. So a module defined in a channel can be just loaded up into your Guix configuration. So you don't have to use Crafted Guix to use these modules. I think it's kind of an interesting way to distribute shared code, though it may also be that it's better just to have a package that pulls a separate repository. There's different ways to do it, and that's part of the goal, is to sort of experiment and see the best way to provide utility code that would be useful for general people's Guix configurations outside of just being used in Crafted Emacs. I also want to incubate Guix Home services that enable configuration of a variety of programs. One of them I'm working on right now is Qt Browser. It's a very basic form of configuration for Qt Browser, what I'm doing just for my own purposes, but one of the benefits of Guix Home is that it should be possible to configure a program using Guile scheme and not the original configuration language for that program. But really what's happening behind the scenes is that this Guile scheme configuration object gets turned into the actual configuration file for the program. So to make that happen, you actually have to write something called a home service. Often you have to write a home service to do that. And this project could be a place for us to define some of these home services for programs that we might want to use in the configuration. And then maybe eventually get those upstreamed into Guix itself. So the idea here isn't to just have like a totally separate project from Guix that has a whole bunch of stuff that is not going to Guix. No, the point is use it as a way to sort of like define what is a really good Emacs/Guix environment that has a great configuration up front, do all the work to put the pieces together, and then figure out what stuff we can actually ship back into the Guix project itself so that anybody can use it. So it's sort of like more of a prototyping project in a way, but still is standalone usable, I guess. Also, we can package useful tools and software that might not be appropriate for geeks or another channel like non-geeks. I mean, the idea would be is if you wanted to package up proprietary software for geeks, you'd probably want to put it in the non-geeks channel. Excuse me. But maybe there's other stuff that only really makes sense for crafted geeks, and we might want to do it that way. I don't know what that is. There may not be very many things like that, but it's something we could do if we wanted to. Ashraz says, do you plan to have any kind of April Fool's joke? Well, what I'm going to do is every video and stream next year is going to be about Vim. And then the only Emacs video that I'm going to make is on April Fool's Day. So just keep a lookout for that. Elijah says, I've had a lot of success writing utility geeks code as stuff that ends up on the Guile load path, although I've not packaged any of it into a channel yet. Yeah, when I realized that Geeks channels just get loaded into the load path and you can just pull things in, that sort of changed the way that I thought about how to use Geeks. And I want to reflect that in the videos that I make this year, because it really shows you how Geeks is just a bunch of Guile code. And it's actually really well designed in that you're just pulling in code from different places. So it's really useful. Ashra says, I asked about an April Fool's joke, not about a productivity boost. Well, if you mean productivity boost in the fact that you can't waste time tweaking your configuration in Vim all day, then yeah, I understand. Let's not actually use Vim. Let's use VI. That'd be better, right? Edward says, in response to Gun, there's a scheme shell. Now I know what I'm doing tomorrow. Yes. There is scheme shell. I do want to check that out at some point on the stream or on a video. And ED, yes. I was gonna say ED, but maybe that was just too obscure. Okay, what's the next thing? Yeah, and like I said before, it would be good to contribute anything that we can back to mainline Geeks. I want the Geeks project to succeed and to grow, and I really want to help Geeks Home grow because there aren't a whole lot of home services at the moment. And I think that a project like this that sort of focuses on trying to build both a system level and user level polished configuration could help to sort of put together various home services that then get submitted to Geeks. Now, we don't necessarily have to do them in crafted Emacs. It could just be that we immediately contribute them to Geeks, and then once they get merged into Geeks, then use them in crafted Emacs. But there's multiple ways to do it. I feel like the real goal is just to help Geeks succeed by, number one, being an easy starting point for people who have tried to install Geeks using the standard installation image and failed because of firmware issues, or someone who wants to see what Geeks can do without having to figure out how to configure the whole system themselves. They just pull in this configuration just as a starting point and just plop it on their system, and then they have something that is usable. So I think it's going to be really cool, good way to get people started in the Geeks, and it should be a lot of fun. And like crafted Emacs, the goal would be for it to enable you to gradually write your own configuration and later abandon crafted Geeks itself if you want to just use plain Geeks. So I'm creating weird projects where the point of it is to make itself obsolete. But I think that's a good thing to do because it helps new users get comfortable in the environment and then eventually get the confidence to go and just redo everything on their own. I think it's a good way to go for the people who don't have the time or the patience to read the documentation and do a bunch of digging on their own. So I would like to do that and see how well it helps. Let's see. Elijah says, yeah, I have a Guile modules folder with utility functions for making system configs and custom services and packages. Yeah, stuff like that would be useful. You should maybe consider contributing if you want to. Stuff like taking a system config and replacing the kernel, microcode, etc. with the non-geek stuff. Yeah, that would be useful. Okay. Judy Dev says, I mean, there will always be new users that want some stuff pre-configured without thinking about it. Yeah, that's what I think too. Especially if you are kind of interested in Geeks in Emacs and Guix, and you've seen this channel, and maybe you want to just like really quickly get started to have this kind of setup like that I have, it would be nice for someone to be able to just do that and try it out. Santiago says, have you ever mentioned why you prefer Guix over NixOS? Because of Scheme. That's why. Also, I really, really, really like the Guix community and the project leaders. I like the mentality. I like what they are shooting for. I like the technology. NixOS is great. It's very mature, has a lot of packages available, a lot of services available, really, really big community around it. But to me, Guix feels like the right place for me because of all the things that I like Lisp and Scheme, but also the sort of the synergy with Emacs and the GNU project in general is all the various tools that you would want to use. So, and as Ashra says, parentheses are clearly superior to the curly brackets. Also, you have, syntax and macro definitions that you can use in your own configuration code. It's pretty awesome, right? So if you want to learn more about hacking Guix, contributing to this project would be a good place to start. I've got a repo created that I made a long time ago, but I never put anything in there. It's github.com/systemcrafters/crafted-geeks. So go watch that repo if you're interested in this project. There's a chance I might move everything to Codeberg or SourceHut at some point. So don't depend too much on this link existing in the future. I will put a message up on the repo if I do end up moving it somewhere else. But for now, this is the place where the development will be kicked off whenever that happens. And if you are interested in potentially contributing to this project, or you have some thoughts about how you would like to use a predefined Guix configuration, please send me an email, david@systemcrafters.net. I would love to hear from you, and also to have people who are willing to contribute in the beginning, especially if you haven't really been using Guix because maybe you didn't want to, or maybe you weren't sure if it had packages that you needed, software that you needed. We can all together maybe try to solve this problem. Other interest groups. So I would like to have this idea of the System Crafters community being more of an active situation rather than just, me making videos and saying there's a quote unquote community. There is a community. Obviously, there's people here, there's people in IRC, there's people in Discord, but I would like there to be more of a focused effort in certain places. I've mentioned 2 of those places now, Crafted Emacs, Crafted Guix, but there's other things I have in mind as well. So there's like a concept of interest groups that you might have seen for other communities. Like some of the Linux distributions, maybe like Debian, etc., have like different groups of people who are looking at different things. So we might have something like that as well. One thing could be looking at window managers. Window managers, I feel like, are a place where there isn't one perfect solution. There's many different ways to use different window managers, and all of them are valid. And I think that I haven't really done enough of a job of explaining that to people or showing different window managers, but it would be cool if there was some people who were sort of looking into various window managers, sort of putting together the pros and cons with respect to sort of our values as a community, typically being things that are, dynamically hackable through a REPL, more than likely are Lisp or Scheme based, and integrate well with Emacs and other tools that we use, that kind of thing. Maybe put together some example configurations, or maybe even do things like make contributions to EXWM, or potentially a soft fork if there's features that we want to add that are more experimental and maybe can't be merged into the main repo for either licensing issues or just because it's, sometimes that repo goes dead for a while. So, we can't really depend on new things getting in there too frequently. Though I am happy to see that things are actually happening recently. That they did release that added some new improvements, so that's cool. Excuse me. Also, community improvements. There's a few things that I want to talk to some people about for how the community is currently organized. First of all, the thing that I've been thinking about forever, I've been talking to people on IRC about this forever, like moving to free and open source equivalents to some of the things we use like now, primarily Discord, also YouTube and Twitch. maybe like evaluating different options and trying to come up with a way to help people migrate to other places without too much trouble. I really do want to get off of Discord. I feel like Discord is not a good place to be from a technology and privacy standpoint, and Matrix is probably better. I kind of want to consider hosting my own thing, but I'm not so sure yet what the right approach is. I think Matrix is a little bit more complicated, but I don't have time to explore that fully, I guess. XMPP is another option, and I do have an XMPP server set up for testing purposes. That was pretty straightforward to set up with Guix, but I don't really know that that's the best option because the availability of apps on mobile devices, they're not the best. So it's iffy, I guess. Matrix has better apps for it. Anyway, these are things that can be discussed with an interest group for community improvements. So if you're interested in these things, please let me know. Also, the process for organizing interest groups, or just sort of community process in general. I mean, if we're going to have more organized efforts around certain areas, it makes sense to sort of talk about how that's supposed to operate, and maybe even getting things like a code of conduct in place. Haven't really needed it so far, but I feel like as the community grows, as the channel grows, etc., it makes sense to have something, even if it's sort of minimal by comparison to maybe other code of conducts you've seen. I would like to talk to people about what they think is appropriate for that. So definitely let me know if you have thoughts on that as well. Then there's also service administration. So I'd like to consider hosting useful services, sort of like I mentioned with Matrix or XMPP. Also potentially an IRC bouncer if people want to use IRC, or a PeerTube instance. I think it would be really cool if maybe the primary place where you check out System Crafters videos and streams would be on PeerTube, because it does support live streaming and it supports, posting videos, but it requires hosting it somewhere. So that would be something we needed to do. Another cool thing about that is that other people from the community can post videos there too if they wanted to. So I think it's kind of neat. Also, it federates with Mastodon and ActivityPub in general. So I don't know. There's a lot of things about PeerTube that seem really cool to me that I want to experiment with it. But I probably need help from people to maintain these, because if I have like 3 or 4 different services up and running, it might be difficult for me to make sure they all don't go down. But maybe the level of traffic we have won't be so high that we need a lot of help. But if you're interested in deploying and managing services using Guix, I would be trying to use Guix for this stuff. So it might be another opportunity for you to do some Guix hacking if you wanted to. I'm not so sure about PeerTube and Matrix when it comes to Guix, because there's a lot of JavaScript stuff involved, I think, in both of those. So that might be challenging, but I don't know. It's worth trying, I think. Wiki maintainers. The System Crafters wiki has been broken for a while, as you might have noticed. It's basically just some kind of SSL certificate issue on GitHub pages I just need to go and fix, which I'll try to do soon. But I would like to sort of, knock the dust off that a little bit and get it going again so that people can contribute. Also make it easier to contribute. Right now, you have to send a pull request on a GitHub repository, which is not so bad. You can just go click the edit button there if you want to, but it would be nice to consider maybe having a different wiki software that makes it easier for people to edit. I haven't spent a lot of time evaluating what the options are for that, but if someone's sort of passionate about the idea of having a better wiki, definitely let me know, and we might see what we can do to set something else up in the original wiki's place. But I don't know, the current one works aside from the SSL issue, so maybe it's not like a huge priority, but it would be nice to revive that. Also, mentors. I think it would be cool if we had a self-selected group of people who want to help newcomers to the community to learn like the finer details of system crafting with Emacs and Guix. This has already sort of happened on the Discord, especially in the Guix channel and the Emacs channel. A lot of people have been there answering questions, but it would be cool maybe if there was like a specific group of people who were available to sort of help folks if they wanted to spend their time to do that. Doesn't have to be really like a formal relationship, and we're not talking about literal mentoring unless you really want to do that. I'm more talking about like new person comes in, has a question, there's a person there to answer that question effectively. So If you are interested in helping on that front, definitely let me know as well. Okay, 1 second. Talking too much nonstop. Let me check the chat and see if I'm missing anything. Somebody had mentioned Todoist before, but I missed it. Anyway, Todoist is cool. Some discussion about non-free geeks. Additional tasks: life administrator, reduced number of inboxes. Yeah, that's a problem. Edward says that Emacs has a built-in XMPP client. Does it? I know there's one that someone wrote, I think Jabber.el. I feel like that one needs to be refreshed a little bit with some newer mentality about how Emacs UI should work. Because it's a little bit... I don't like having like the main buffer. I don't know. Like I just kind of get an oldish vibe whenever I use that package. But maybe that's just my impression. Santiago says, the problem with Discord, too, is that searching is very crappy and difficult to index on Google and search engines. Yeah, that's one of the problems I have with it. I don't like telling people to go search the Discord as a way to answer a question. It would be better to have a mailing list or a forum where people can ask questions and have it be searchable and visible to the internet. Anything you post on Discord is not visible to the internet. So let me say... mailing lists here. Obviously, SourceHut is a place where we could have mailing lists, but if I don't have repos on SourceHut, then having the mailing list be there is kind of weird, I think. But I don't know. I'm curious to hear people's feedback on mailing lists versus forum software, because I think mailing lists are fairly easy to use because it's just email. But I don't know how people feel about that versus something like Discourse or another forum software. Judy Dev says, I think it's better to have a code of conduct before you need it. Yes, I agree with that. And, we're probably overdue for that at this point. Ashra says, I'm losing my my scroll here. Ashra says, that's my personal issue with contributing to the System Crafter services. I can one-time contribute, but I'm not reliable enough for long-time management, which is why I just automate everything. Well, that's why part of the reason why I would use Guix for that. But yeah, it's not like a person would be watching analytics all the time. It might be just like a mailing list where the people who are sort of able to help just get notifications if there are issues, like alerts or something, Ashra says there's a Pandoc plus Git-based wiki, but I can't recall the name at the moment. That would be cool. Elijah says the Guix project is hosted and certified by the FSF, so they can't point at non-free stuff officially. Yeah, I should probably make a video about that at some point to sort of explain it. Gunn says, is the wiki authored in org mode? Yes, it is. Elijah says, I try to mentor as I have time, but my free time comes in spurts. Yeah, that's just pretty common, I think. Judy Dev says, I wouldn't mind helping out on the wiki or architecture automation. Probably won't have time available until before April, however, due to master's thesis. Well, anytime that you're interested, definitely send me an email. Judy Dev says a mailing list or something similar is also nicer to link from the wiki as reference. Yeah, definitely. See you, Colin. Mitch says, as a young person, I find mailing lists and email in general to be tedious and painful. That's really funny. And I don't mean funny as a way to say it's ridiculous that you say it. It's like, you can see the generational gap where, you know, some people are comfortable with email as a way to just get information. I don't write a lot of emails, even at work anymore. I don't write a lot of emails. It's mostly IMs, but for mailing lists, it's convenient, I think, because you have a format that can easily be synced to your computer, so you can look at it offline. You can archive it yourself for years and years. It won't go away because you already have it. And also, it's very easy to send and receive messages from other people. And you have hundreds and hundreds of clients that you can use to access it. So I think it's just a matter of perception, because everybody's gotten so stuck on this idea that you need an app and a specific service to do things, when you don't really need that for a lot of stuff. I mean, there's IRC for chat, and there's email, obviously. Those two by themselves account for a lot of the stuff that we do day to day, communication wise. So I know it's good to think about how to use email more rather than less, especially not using platforms like Gmail, etc. Gunn says, I love MU4E. It integrates perfectly. Yes, MU4E is a very great mail client. I've been using it more recently. Ashra says, if you see mails as an alternative for letters, certainly letters with all their formal requirements are hard, but if you treat mails as kind of like slow chat messages, yeah, for sure. That's a good way to look at it. Hey, Jeff. Good news for mail. I need to look at GNUs. Edward says, have you done a video about setting up MU4E? Yes, I have an Emacs mail series that talks about MU4E. However, it's possible that some of the stuff there is out of date because MU4E keeps changing things. That's one of the things that annoys me a little bit about that project, is that they keep changing the names of functions or settings, and my configuration breaks probably once or twice a year. Okay, so like I said before, send me an email if you're interested in helping in any one of these areas. I'd certainly be happy to hear from you, or just generally if you have ideas for things that we could do that would be useful or valuable to the System Crafters community, because I would like to provide more things to people, or provide more ways for people to get involved and contribute and learn, especially if you don't really know much about coding, or if you haven't done a lot of Emacs Lisp or Scheme development. It'd be cool to have projects to enable people to learn. Also, events. So there's two different types of events that we could do for System Crafters. One of them I've talked about a few times, which is like doing hackathons. I haven't done that yet. I've had various ideas here and there. I've mentioned on streams before that I wanted to do it, but we never actually gotten around to it. So this year I want to do one, at least. We'll try to think of an idea for that. I'll be sort of tracking that and planning for it. I'm not sure what time of year it will be. It'll probably be like a week-long thing where there's like a theme where you go maybe write your own Emacs package, or maybe you try to build a different kind of Emacs configuration from the one you're currently using, or maybe you try to package a particular piece of software. Anything like that, I think it'd be pretty cool, because it gives sort of the community the opportunity to work at the same time on similar things. And be able to discuss it together, learn from each other, etc. I think hackathons are a great thing. I like to do game jams, as I've mentioned multiple times on the channel, and it's always great to have that kind of focused period of time when you're working on something that you might not have spent time on before. Edward says, maybe some merch. Yeah, we have store.systemcrafters.net. I just set up a new one today. But I'm not sure about it yet, so I'm asking people for their feedback on it, because I'm not certain that it's the right place to be. But yeah, we'll see. Also, virtual conference. I'm really impressed with what the Emacs Conf has been doing the last couple of years with their virtual version of the conference. Probably it will go in person again at some point in the future, but it might be interesting to do a virtual conference for the System Crafters community. Now, the question is, what would we do that would not have already been in Emacs Conf or in a conference about other free and open source software? I don't know yet, but if you have thoughts about what a conference could be for System Crafters, let me know, especially if you're interested in helping to organize such a thing. It would definitely be virtual only, because getting people together in one place is very complicated. it's complicated enough to try to organize people to do virtual talks. So it's something I would like to try. I don't necessarily know that it will happen in 2023, but it's something that I would like to be thinking about and planning for, because it's just a nice way to sort of focus people's attention on, what stuff has been happening in the year. As you can see with EmacsConf, so many cool things get discussed and things that you haven't really heard of before. But since it's all there distilled into one series of talks, then you get a wide exposure to things that you haven't seen. See you, Jeff. Happy holidays. I'll be reaching out to you pretty soon about some stuff, I think. Judy says, maybe progress excuse me, on crafted projects or smaller things like config workflow showcases. Definitely. I mean, since this is a system crafting community, maybe more like, show off my dot files kind of thing would be cool. Yeah, so definitely send me an email if you're interested in helping in any of these areas. So the last thing I want to talk about today, or at least the last thing I'm prepared to talk about today, is my own personal plan, which is ambitious and sounds crazy, but it's sort of like a now or never type situation. My big goal in 2023 is to start working on System Crafters and the related projects like Mesh and Flux Harmonic full time. That basically means I would not be working a full-time job. I would be trying to see what I could do with System Crafters, the community, and also the other projects I'm working on that are sort of related, and see if I can find a way to basically make a living creating tutorial content, organizing community efforts, and also maybe making content on other topics like game development, etc., on the Flux Harmonic channel. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for making high quality content in the style that I do, not only for this channel, but maybe for other topics. So I want to experiment with different things and see how things work. But primarily, I want to focus on this channel and this community because I feel like there is so much value that I can create if I just have more time to focus on it. And I'm so dedicated to the idea of this channel and the things that I've been doing over the last couple of years that I'm willing to take a leap of faith and basically just leave my full-time employment so that I can focus exclusively on building out all the things that we discussed in the stream, and also just like creating a more organized community experience, because I really do want System Crafters to be more than just a YouTube channel. I mean, we should have organized efforts where we can work together and help each other build cool things and contribute to our favorite projects, including Emacs and Guix. I want to be able to help people, get started contributing to these projects, because it's really rewarding to do that, to see something that you made get used by a bunch of people. The scope for your contributions to be used by others is really high with Emacs and even with Guix, because there's a lot of people using both of those projects. So if I can create a community, or at least improve the state of the community where this kind of thing is regularly happening, then I will feel like it is definitely a success. So if you'd like to support my efforts for all the projects we discussed today and to sort of enable me to focus more of my time on all of them, definitely consider becoming a GitHub sponsor, or support me on LibraPay, which is another sort of free and open source privacy-centric version of a monthly sponsorship platform. That way it can help prolong the amount of time that I can survive without having to resort to full-time employment again. Like I said, it's kind of crazy to try to do this, but I've received a level of support from people over the last couple of years that gives me hope that I can actually do this. So definitely, if you're interested in helping out, check out the link to systemcrafters.net/support the channel, and it has all the options there for how to support things and some more information about that. And one other thing that your sponsorship would enable me to do is to relicense all of the content I've created so far for this channel, and also any future content under Creative Commons licenses, so that you can basically download all the videos and share them wherever you want on the internet, or make compilations, that kind of thing. It's harder for me to allow that right now because YouTube ad revenue is a component of the income that I make from this channel, but it's not a big component. So it's something that I don't really depend on. And if I sort of make up for that with actual sponsorship from people who care about the content that I'm making, then it's easier for me to just, make a Creative Commons license and just let people run with it, basically translate it or post it on other websites, etc. Especially if I get into like making books and whatnot. So that content could definitely go other places. So, my goal is just to make the things that I create be useful to the maximum number of people without any restrictions on where you see them or your ability to share them with other people. Because the more people who find out about the stuff, who start using Emacs and Guix, the better, I think. It helps with the health of those projects and those communities as well. Ashra says, corporate sponsorship at some point, maybe. Excuse me. This stream is sponsored by JetBrains would be quite a surprise. I do not want to do things like that. The only sponsor that I've taken on so far, which isn't really a sponsor so much as a partnership, is Mastering Emacs. And because it made total sense, I can feel confident talking about Mastering Emacs because I know that it is directly related to the interests of the people who come here to the streams and watch the videos. So that makes sense. Talking about some other proprietary program or editor that has nothing to do with Emacs or Guix makes no sense. So I just don't think I would do that, no matter how much money they offered, because I know how quickly it would just erode any confidence or trust that people had in me. And the whole point here is to build trust and confidence. So definitely not going to do that. So also, sponsorships help from the community help me to avoid having to do things like that. I would also eventually like to turn ads off on the channel because they're very intrusive. I have YouTube Premium, so whenever I go to YouTube, I don't see ads, but sometimes I'll use like a incognito browser to go to see my channel. Excuse me. And it's kind of shocking how many ads show up on videos whenever you don't have ad block turned on or you don't have YouTube Premium. So yes. Erwan says, more of a surprise would be Oracle. Yeah, we're not doing that. Ashra says, let's stay in the realm of horror and not step into the realm of nightmares. I agree. Ashra says, creating a simple Dwarf Fortress clone in Mesh. We will only work on it for a couple streams. 200 streams later. Yeah, that's another thing. Maybe one day we'll do a game jam where we get into some of that kind of stuff. Gunn says, moving to Sweden? No. But moving to Guix was enough, I think. VS Code sponsored. That would be hilarious. Edward says, I think the store forwards to whatever the product is in your shopping cart when you click on a new product. Yes, I don't know what's going on with that. I think something's buggy with that site because I saw the same thing happening earlier today. I don't know what's going on. Okay, the last thing I want to mention related to all of this is that there's another way that you can help support my work after I make this transition. It will probably be, let's say, 3 to 5 months before I actually do leave a full-time job because there are certain circumstances in my personal life right now that prevent me from just doing it right now. Otherwise, I would just do it right now. But it may take a few months. But even up until that time, and then after, one way that you can support my work is by hiring me for freelance work. I actually want to get started doing a little bit of freelance work on various different things that I know how to do. And if people are interested in hiring me to help them, then I would be certainly interested in that. First of all, like building Emacs and Guix configurations. This seems kind of weird. Like, why would you hire someone to help you with your Emacs configuration or your Guix configuration? But you would be surprised the number of times I've been asked about this, and I never really responded to any of those inquiries because it felt weird, and I don't really know like what I would charge for that. But I want to figure it out because I have been asked enough times that it seems like something that people might be interested in. So if you're interested in me helping you one-on-one with your configuration, certainly send me an email and we'll talk about it. Also, packaging software or services for Guix. This is actually kind of an interesting idea. Since there's a lot of things missing in Guixland, I think that paying people to spend time packaging certain bits of software would actually be a good way to help the community. I'm not talking about like doing packaging on a personal level, like I package something for you and then you just run off with the package. I mean, like you contract me to write the package to contribute actually to Guix itself, or maybe like the non-Guix channel, depending on what kind of software it is, so that you can use a program that you want to use, but you just maybe don't have the time to figure out how to package software for Guix. So if that's something that you might be interested in, definitely let me know. I am not the world's foremost expert on Guix packaging, but I also have a strong desire to learn it top to bottom so that I can make really good content about it. So any extra work that I do toward that also helps me to make content for the channel. Let's see. Ashra says, do you have a CV somewhere or a Code Mentor account or some kind of service you want to use to promote yourself or your skills or for collaboration? I don't, but if people have suggestions on that, I'm certainly, I want to hear it, because I don't know what all the tools are these days that people use for these kind of things. Sounds like Code Mentor is a thing that I should use though. Ashra says, that sounds somewhat like only Lisp. Yeah, maybe, yeah. Let's not get into making jokes about what an OnlyFans themed Lisp community would be. Judy says, basically a channel where you can pay to get a package for. Well, it would be more like, you know, pay to get a package made for the community, because I think that's the best way to do it. Building CI automation for projects. I kind of like making CI automation for, you know, release automation or CI testing or various different things. So if people need help with CI automation for commercial projects or open source projects, I could definitely help with that, because I enjoy it. I've also got a lot of experience with GitHub Actions, SourceHut build, AppVeyor, a little bit of Circle CI, Travis CI. What else? There's another one. Oh, and also the latest thing from Codeberg, which is Woodpecker, which is based on drone. So Gun says, what? No PowerShell scripting? I don't really want to. I could do it, but I'm also not the best PowerShell scripter in the world. I only worked on the tools, so. Erwan says, free stacks, putting it together, Guix, Fediverse tools, open chat tools, etc., hosted on Codeberg. I would like to do that for sure. Fade says, where's Sherry when she's needed? I don't know. Sherry showed up for 1 or 2 streams and then disappeared again. That was weird. I swear it's not me that's doing it. It's probably somebody who's a fan of the channel sending that bot here. If it's a bot, I don't know. I'm still not convinced. Now with ChatGPT, it could be ChatGPT just showing up in the chat to mess with all of us. Edward says, I'm about to start at a company where others already use Emacs as a development environment. That's cool. I'd like to hear that. Yes, definitely they dog fooded the bot on System Crafter. Ashra says, ask yourself whether you want to work exclusively on open to the public tasks or if you also want to do behind the doors consulting. I want to do both. So like the next thing here, general software or development consulting, that would definitely be a sort of behind the doors type thing. Or, you know, like I help someone with something they actually have that's proprietary, that is not really about like a competitor to Emacs or anything. It's just like a product, you know, like just general freelance consulting. And also building deployment images with Guix. I feel like Guix has a lot of value to companies who are deploying software. So if there's companies who would like to try out using Guix, I would definitely be interested in trying to help build configurations for images for deployment of programs to services, etc. You know, using Docker also, you know, you can make Docker images with Guix. So there's a lot of stuff that you can use Guix for with that, and it would also help me to learn more about different use cases for Guix. So I'm open to any sort of ideas that people have for ways that I might be able to help you. So definitely give me an email and let me know how I might be able to help. Or if you have like a company that you work for that might be looking for people to do freelance work here and there just to pick up some tasks, I'm certainly interested to hear about it. But I would definitely like to keep things more in the realm of the topics we cover in this channel, because it not only does it help support my work, it also helps me to learn things that are relevant that I can convey to you all. So it sort of just puts that energy and information back into the community, which is good. Erwan says, not sure if it makes sense, but Guix flavor of Nix packs. Yeah, I haven't looked into like the whole Nix packs and flakes and all kinds of stuff like that. I need to sort of understand a little bit better what Nix is doing. Okay, so that's all that I had to talk about today. Thoughts, ideas, feedback, anything that sounds kind of weird, or maybe things that I didn't cover that you would be interested to see. I think a couple ideas from Erwan here that maybe I should write down. And put that down here. So let's see. Excuse me. Guix flavor of Nix packs. Set up a code mentor or other related site. The store should be working, but I actually haven't tried going through the whole thing, so I'll have to check that out. A Guix image builder for server systems would be interesting. Server systems. I mean, you could definitely do that already with the existing tools, but maybe, you know, something that makes it easier to set up these images. Oh, is that what Nix packs are? Okay, Guix pack. Yeah, you can basically just create a package of a Guix program that has all the stuff baked into it. You know, it's kind of weird because it is a way to package up software to run on other systems, kind of like Flatpak or App Image, sort of. But the package that you get has so many weird folders inside of it because it's basically just taking things directly out of the Guix store and just putting it together in a package that it might be a little bit shocking to people who try to take one of those and run it, but I don't know, maybe it's useful. John Mossy says, not sure if you mentioned, but I'd love to see some content around general scripting or automations with Emacs Lisp. Yeah, I should make something about that. Scripting with Emacs Lisp. General scripting. Because there's a lot you can do, for sure. Railway apps, Nix packs. An alternative to build packs. Cool. I'll take a look at that. I haven't heard of it. Judy Dev says, sounds very interesting. I think the packaging Guix packages against payment is something that would help with adoption for both users and developers, eventually bigger projects. Yeah, you know, it'd be cool, I think, as a way to help build out the packages in the community. Ashraz brings up an interesting question. Can you use Guix on Alpine? That might be a nice small distribution starter, but might fail due to muzzle instead of GNU libc. It's possible. I actually want to look into that. I have that on my list of things to possibly cover on the channel because I think Alpine is kind of interesting in what the goals of the project are. So, yeah, I'll look into that again this year, I think. Judy Dev says, maybe also Guile Scheme. Not to say Emacs List is bad, but just a thought. Yeah, one use case for Guile Scheme that I want to sort of promote is for general scripting. Because it is sort of made for that. It's sort of like the scripting and extension language of the GNU operating system. So definitely can work well as a scripting language. Elijah says, Railway Apps Nix Packs makes a Docker container from a Nix environment, right? Guix Pack can do just about that. Well, Guix System Image can definitely do that, where you just have a system configuration that can just create a Docker container that is already running the services you want. There's really interesting talk that's coming at FOSDEM 2023 in February by Ephraim, who is one of the maintainers of Guix. He's doing a talk about making minimal Docker container images using Guix. I'm really interested to see what he has to say about that, because if you can use Guix to make a minimal Docker container image, then it could be a very powerful tool for building, microservices-based applications or just general application deployment without having huge overhead of all the stuff that might come along with Guix. Elijah says, Guix Pack can also make Docker images, but it's been around longer than Guix System Image. Yeah, for sure. Like that is one idea of a package, is like you have a Docker container is sort of like a package that can be deployed. So yeah, it makes sense. Erwan says, I would be interested in that. Minimal containers using Guix. Yeah, once I know more about how to do that, I definitely want to make a video on it, because one thing I realized with Codeberg, at least, is that they use a CI system that uses Docker containers for everything. So every step of the CI pipeline is a Docker container being executed. And I started trying to figure out how to set up Guix system configurations that produce a container that can be used on CI, and I've done it. It works, but the images are kind of big, so I like to slim those down, and then give some sort of like general advice about how to set up a Docker image for things like CI or deploying applications. So it's definitely something I'm going to be doing. Gun says, Docker files written in Scheme. I mean, it's sort of like that, I guess, but I think you still use Docker files in the end. Well, not exactly. Yeah, you don't have to use a Docker file because Guix just set everything up. So it may just be generating that for you. Fade says, the intersection between Guix and DevOps is almost entirely unexplored. It's been explored somewhat, but yeah, it's not been promoted enough, I think. Or at least not in a way that I feel like I've seen it repeated to me enough. I think we might see more of that in the near future, because David Thompson, who has been a contributor to Guix quite often in the past and also has done a lot of stuff in the Guile Scheme community, just got a job working for the Sprightly Institute, and I got a feeling that he's going to be doing some new Guix system deployment type work there. So we might hear from him on his blog about some of the things that he's working on. So that should be really cool if that happened. Let's see. Now, Osni, I think, says, alternatively use Nix on FreeBSD. Well, no thanks. I'm not saying FreeBSD is bad, but, you know. Judy Dev says, there were also people asking about BSDs. Not that all here may be happy about that. The BSD folks included, as in Guix on BSD. Okay. Well, definitely Guix on BSD, I think, probably. That's something people might be interested in. Write a virus in Guile Scheme like zero. Cool. Yeah. I'll definitely write a virus that siphons money from a large oil corporation. Elijah says, I'd argue that Guix's own build farm software is essentially its own CI stack. It is. That's true. Cheerus, or however you pronounce that, they definitely have their own CI stack that's built in Guix. I'm not sure how heavyweight that is, or if it's like, you know, something that a normal person or a normal developer can go put on their own system to run, but I would be interested in looking into that for sure. Guix is kind of perfect for CI in a way, because it gives you a way to very clearly define a configuration for a system and also software that gets executed immediately, and also making a Guix package definition for your program that you're building so that it can be built in such an environment is useful, not only because it can build your software, but it can also run your tests, and it can be used to distribute your software if people who are going to consume your software also use Guix. So a lot of interesting implications there, I think. Excuse me. Fade says, Debian K FreeBSD is the only way I've found to make FreeBSD not feel like you're living in 1978. Yes, Judy's talking about using Guile outside of Linux. Can be hit or miss, but it should be possible with some patching. I think it's possible to use Guile on Windows via MSys, which is like the newer version of the Cygwin type packaging. It's not really the same thing, but it's sort of the same idea. You basically have a GNU system running in Windows, and you can compile software that runs natively in Windows using all the standard GNU tools. But also, there is a pretty strong effort to have Guile running on Mac OS. Alex Concilio, I forgot his last name, but he has the Guile homebrew repository where you can install Guile and Guile packages on Mac OS, so that definitely is there. Judy Dev says, there were some ideas for Guile 3 native, but that went nowhere on the mailing list. Yeah, that might be difficult. I mean, part of the reason why I'm making Mesh, there's many reasons why I'm making Mesh, which is my own scheme implementation, but one of the reasons is because I do want to have strong cross-platform support that doesn't require like having the runtime on the system. You could make a standalone application and not have all your dependencies there. So I kind of want to solve that problem in a different way for different types of programs. WSL, definitely a place where you could try to use Guile on Windows for sure. Ashra says Cygwin and MSys2 excuse me, differ in their linkage. Cygwin compile Linux stuff usually into PE format and link against cygwin.dll. MSys2 compiles directly against Windows syscalls. Yeah, definitely. Herd. Yeah, I know that there actually is an effort still to work on Herd, but I have not tried it. I know that Guix actually does work with it, regardless of the April Fool's joke they pulled a couple years ago. They were saying they're going to switch from the Linux kernel to Herd, but obviously that can't happen because Herd doesn't work with 100% of software or hardware. Okay, maybe not 100%, but I would say 99.96%. I could be wrong about that. Okay, I think that's it. The stuff that I wanted to talk about related to Crafted Emacs, I'll just say it briefly. The way that Crafted Emacs is working currently is that you have to clone the Crafted Emacs repo to your computer, use it as your main Emacs configuration, and then put your init.el file or config.el file somewhere else to configure the configuration. I actually think that's not the right way to do that. I started off that approach, but now I've thought of a different way, which is to have the Crafted Emacs repo be something you clone to your machine, but you add it to your Emacs configuration load path. And then if you add that first to your Emacs config load path or even to your early init.el file, then you should be able to require the Crafted Emacs modules into your configuration to enable them and to sort of pull in that behavior so that you are in control of your init.el file, and it more directly expresses this idea I have that you should be able to pull it in where you want and not actually have it take over your configuration. So something I'll write more about in an issue on the repo soon, because it does play into the Crafted Guix ideas that I have as well, because maybe Crafted Emacs, Crafted Guix can be used together. Cheers, Gun. Thanks so much for being a part of things this year. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be thinking about that and working on it a bit more soon, I think. Judy Dev says, so more like a system library or maybe even a Guix package? Yes, like that too. So the idea being that if you're speaking of Crafted Emacs, the idea is that you should be able to pull in Crafted Emacs modules individually into your config and possibly even have individual Guix packages for them all, so that if you only want one module, you just pull that in, and you would be able to configure those using Guix Home so that per system configuration can be handled by Guix Home, like, you know, fonts you use, font sizes, themes by default in Emacs, etc. I think there's a way to make all this stuff blend together in a way that allows it to be very modular, but also still give you that ability to gradually just write your own configuration if you want to. Ashra says, going back to packages, something I would be consider paying for would be an update to xcorporate.el. Microsoft's multi-factor auth has killed my corporate workflow mid-year. That's interesting. I've seen that package around. I haven't used it, but since Office 365 is using effectively an authentication workflow that potentially could be integrated with, it's possible that that could be updated. The only problem is whether the deployment of Office 365 or the configuration actually allows you to use external clients, but that could be possible. Yes, don't get nerd sniped by the question. I'm interested to try to solve any problems anybody has if they're interested to contract me for that. Gernati says, an intro to Enox regex's rebuilder PCRE2EL might be useful for beginners that are usually confused by the weird zoo of regex. Yes, or just the RX library. And RE builder, definitely. So let me add that to the list because those are super useful. The regex builder and the RE package, cool stuff. Let me pull up my list here. So regex builder and re.el or rx.el. RX, I don't remember. All right. I think that's all the time that I have for today. So I'm going to shut the stream down now. But before I go, I would like to say, since this is the last stream for the year, I should have mentioned that up front. I forgot to mention that. Next week, I'll be out of town, hanging out with family. So this is the last stream for 2022. So I want to sign off by saying that I really appreciate all of you who have stuck with me this year while I've been sort of like in transition, moving to a different country, and things have been kind of unreliable in terms of video production. Streams, especially when all the streams are crashing because my internet wasn't working half the time. So thank you all very much for your support, your attendance, your attention, and also for coming back and hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited about the things that we could do in 2023 in this channel and the community. So definitely just keep coming back and let me know any thoughts you have via all the communication channels we have available to us: email, Mastodon, IRC, Discord, whatever. I'm happy to hear from you, and I will do a much better job of replying to emails now because I need to do that. So like I said, thank you all very much. I hope you all have a great holiday season, however you celebrate, and some time off maybe to rest and recuperate and hack on your system configurations a little bit. And I will see you all in the next year with our first new System Crafters video for the year. Don't know what it is yet, but we'll see. But until then, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your year, and happy hacking. See ya.